So while everybody is distracted by the fact that despite the video footage, despite the quote-unquote mountains of evidence, despite the testimonies, despite all the reasons that we have to believe that Diddy has and was involved in many illegal activities, he was still acquitted of 3 of the major charges that he is being charged for. While many people are distracted by the Israeli and Gaza war that's been taking place, which is totally understandable, as thousands of innocent people continue to be killed in Gaza at the hands of the Israeli government, what I personally believe a lot of people should also be focusing on is what I'm going to call the largest cover-up by a federal government in American history.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.
Just real quick before we get into today's video, I just want to remind everybody, if you're new to the channel or maybe you've been following the channel for some time now and you watch my videos, you go through my channel and you say, bro, why don't you have more views? Man, they're suppressing your videos, bro. They're controlling the algorithm. We know. Welcome to the party. I've been dealing with this for more than 3 years now. I agree with you. Like, I think a lot of my videos deserve hundreds of thousands of more views, but that's the reason why I just ask you all kindly and politely, just hit the like button. Make sure you're still subscribed because they will unsubscribe you, and at least share the video with 1 or 2 other people. That's all I ask. I appreciate you all support, especially my Patreon and my channel members. You all mean the world to me since I'm doing this full time now. I cannot express my thanks enough. Without further ado, let's get to the video. I called it. I freaking called it. If you all remember, about maybe 5 or 6 months ago, at the very beginning of this Trump administration, I made a video and I told you all there is no Epstein list. There is no list, but what they're going to do is they're going to string people along because they're supposed to be the administration that's going to be extremely transparent and expose everything. So they can't just jump right into the administration on day 1 and then go cold turkey and reverse everything that they said that they were going to do, everything that they've been campaigning on. So what they have to do, they have to continue to tease people and build the momentum to make it look and appear as if there's really something there, when there was never anything there to begin with. We're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein files. And to be honest, my mind is all over the place right now. I'm trying to figure out where to start. So if you all remember, I made a video maybe a month or 2 ago talking about the group Anonymous. And they were talking about sometime around July 4th, we were going to begin some news that was going to forever change the way we see life, and it was going to change things in America. And while that still may not have happened just yet, 2 or 3 days ago, the news about Jeffrey Epstein came out, and that's right after the 4th of July. And many of us could argue that maybe the way that they talked about this, there should have been something more important. But I can also understand how this could also be the news that they were talking about, because this is by far, in my opinion, the biggest cover-up in American history when it comes to a federal government, because the implications here, right? When you have Pam Bundy coming out and insinuating that she has the client list, or what she's saying is the client files on her desk, and they're talking about there's tens of thousands of videos, there's mountains of evidence and truckloads of evidence. When you have the DOJ and the new direct Kash Patel and the crew saying one thing at one point, but now they're backtracking, and then they're releasing video footage of Jeffrey Epstein's cell, or at least the door outside of his cell, even though it's 2 different doors from what they showed us months ago. It's almost laughable, to be honest with you. It's the biggest slap in our faces. But what I'm going to do in this video, because I really want to drive home just how important that this is, how big of a deal that this is, and what I think that Trump himself, I think he's really underestimating what a lot of his core base fans, because a lot of people voted for him for different reasons, right? Some people, it was immigration. Some people, believe it or not, it was Epstein. Some people, it was what they call in quote unquote the woke agenda, or the left, who's went super far left and extreme with their ideologies, which I 100% agree with and understand. But he's really underestimating that core group, the second group that I named, people who take human trafficking, people who take manipulating and taking advantage of children extremely serious. We don't see it as something you just brush under the rug. We don't see it as just something you scold a reporter for simply because he's asking about it.
Your memo and release yesterday with Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the minute set?
Yeah, sure. If
Could I just interrupt for one
Sure.
second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration. But
What do you mean? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Yeah, maybe you should too. Let me make sure I understand. Are you still asking about a guy who's a proven child predator, and it's also been proven that he ran a ring that involved other powerful people whom we have not been able to identify yet, let alone arrest and prosecute? Are we still talking about that situation? Well, absolutely. But what I'm going to do to really drive this point home, because I think a lot of people forget who Jeffrey Epstein was and how he came up through the ranks and how mysterious and weird it was. So I'm going to drive that home, and then I'm going to connect that to another person that's an associate of Jeffrey Epstein that a lot of people aren't talking about, that further proves that this does not stop with Jeffrey Epstein. Why was Ghislaine Maxwell even convicted? Why was she prosecuted? Because it was just her and Jeffrey Epstein? Of course not. This is the standard. Diddy is not on trial just for nothing. What Diddy was doing is not an isolated situation. This is the standard. This is the norm. So before I delve into the Jeffrey Epstein story, or at least a little bit of his story, all I ask is just hit that like button for me so this video can reach more people such as yourself. I would really, really appreciate it. Make sure that you're still subscribed, hit that notification bell. Let's get into it. So a lot of people forget. So Jeffrey Epstein, just real quick and short. So Jeffrey Epstein, part of his story, or what they've told us, is that he was this huge financier, right? But before he became that, there's a guy by the name of Donald Barr. Donald Barr, who was the father of Bill Barr, yes, the former U.S. Attorney General under Bush, and also U.S. Attorney General under Trump. Well, I want to just share something very interesting about Donald Barr. Many years ago, I believe back in the 70s, he published a book called Space Relations, which is one of the most weirdest and creepiest books I've ever heard in my life. It's a science fiction book that talks about a planet ran by oligarchs who participate, wait for it, in child sex slavery. And because they are so bored and they never get in trouble with all this power that they have an ambassador who works with them to try to get accepted back into wider society, because the rest of the world is not a fan of kidnapping human beings and trading them like their property. So this planet that is ran by these individuals that participate in abusing children has an ambassador that is working with them to try to get the rest of the world to accept them and maybe even become a part of it. Well, at the same time this book was published, Donald Barr was the headmaster of a school called Dalton School in New York, which is one of the most prestigious schools in New York. So much, in fact, that tuition is literally $65,000 a year. Well, at this time that he published his book, he was also the headmaster of a school. Can you imagine that? A person why are you writing a book about that? Why are you thinking about that? Why are you so comfortable with publicly talking about whether it's fiction or not? Anything, anywhere, anybody committing these sort of acts. But okay. And it's so interesting enough that there are conspiracy theories about a particular foreign nation that literally participates in these sort of deals, who Jeffrey Epstein would later also be tied to as an intelligence agent of said foreign nation. Well, this person, Donald Barr, was also the headmaster of a school. He oversaw children at this point in time. Can you imagine that? Well, at this time, he also hired a 21-year-old Jeffrey Epstein as a math teacher, despite the fact that Jeffrey Epstein only had a high school diploma. He only took just a few classes on a college level before dropping out. He had no teaching certificates and literally had no training. Yet he was hired to teach children at one of the most prestigious schools in New York. Got it. While he was also at this school, it was reported by female students that this guy was a creep because he was attending parties with these high school students, acting creepy with them. Then in 1970, he gets a job in finance, once again with no background, no experience, and became friends with the CEO of Bear Stearns. And within 4 years, this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, became a junior assistant in 1976 at the young age of 27 years old. Then it gets creepy because just a year later, Jeffrey Epstein would then be accused of fraud by some sort of SEC violation. So then he would leave and start his own firm because he's so great at this job, and started his own firm called Epstein & Co. And at this firm, he immediately began managing money, and in my opinion, it was just high-level money laundering for government officials and other wealthy clients. Then he started managing for a guy by the name of Leslie Wexner and literally made millions with him. And this guy, Leslie Wexner, if he sounds familiar to any of you, was the CEO of many retail stores, from Abercrombie and Fitch, Victoria's Secret, Lane Bryant, and multiple more. I mean, the relationship between him and Jeffrey Epstein was so good that Leslie Wexner literally made Epstein in control of everything from power of attorney. He had hiring and firing decision capabilities, and then some. Well, this is why I want to back up just a little bit, because I think this is where a lot of people miss a little bit of a loophole here that we need to pay attention to, a small little fine detail. Leslie Wexner, who had this mysterious relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, somehow they became so close, in fact, that Wexner gave this young Jeffrey Epstein with very little experience all of this power, okay? Which meant that Leslie Wexner, who oversaw these retail stores, one of those retail stores being Abercrombie and Fitch. For those of you who don't know, there was a CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, which I really hate saying that name, but there was a former CEO by the name of Mike Jeffries. And Mike Jeffries, from 1992 to 2014, I mean, he literally took Abercrombie and Fitch until he turned it into like a cultural phenomenon, so to speak, right? Where they made up to $4.5 billion in annual sales by 2013. But then in October of 2023, a major BBC investigative report revealed that Jeffries, his partner Matthew Smith, and business associate James Jacobson allegedly tricked young men promising modeling jobs into sex parties. Sound familiar? Reports describe drug use, coerced consent, penis injections, and strict non-disclosure measures. And a civil class action lawsuit soon followed, claiming dozens, if not hundreds of victims. That brings us up to October of last year, so just 8 months ago. The Eastern District of New York unsealed a 16-count federal indictment charging Jeffrey, Smith, and Jacobson with sex trafficking and interstate prostitution. They allegedly exploited hundreds of young men between 2008 and 2015, plying them with money, drugs, modeling promises, NDAs, and coercion to attend sex events in U.S. cities, the Hamptons, London, Venice, Morocco, and other places as well. Jeffries and Smith were arrested in Palm Beach, Florida, and Jacobson was arrested in Wisconsin. Jeffries was released on a $10 million bond. Smith was detained as a flight risk, and Jacobson secured release on a $500,000 bond. And then they had initial court appearances later that week in New York. All three pleaded not guilty, as we should expect. And then on April 10th of this year, Jeffrey's defense filed a motion citing medical evaluations diagnosing him with Alzheimer's, Lewy body dementia, and effects of a traumatic brain injury, arguing he's incapable of standing trial due to irreparable cognitive decline. And by May 2nd, 2025, a federal judge agreed, ordering Jeffries to undergo further medical evaluation for 4 months to determine whether competency can be restored. But to further drive this point home, let me just read just a little bit of the indictment, just so you all can really get a sense of what the disgusting things these people were doing, allegedly. It says here, the defendant James T. Jacobson, also known as Jim Jake, Miss Cook, and Todd was employed by the defendants Michael S. Jeffries and Matthew C. Smith to recruit, interview, and hire men to perform commercial sex acts for Jeffries and Smith, including the New York properties. From approximately 2008 to 2015, the defendants Michael Jeffries, Matthew Smith, and James Jacobson, together with others, operated an international trafficking and prostitution business. During this period, Jeffries and Smith relied on their vast financial resources, Jeffries' power as the CEO of Abercrombie, and numerous people, including Jacobson, and a network of employees, contractors, and security professionals, to run a business that was dedicated to fulfilling their sexual desires and ensuring that their international trafficking and prostitution business was kept secret, thereby maintaining Jeffries' powerful reputation. The defendants Michael Jeffries, Matthew Smith, and James Jacobson, and others acting at their direction, employed coercive, fraudulent, and deceptive tactics in connection with the recruitment, hiring, transportation, obtaining, maintaining, solicitation, and payment of the men to engage in commercial sex. For example, these are some of the accusations. Employed a referral system and interview process that failed to inform men of the details of the events before they attended, including the full extent and nature of the activity that will be required of the men at these events, including, among other things, anal intercourse, the insertion of large toys, and other high pressure administered by the... I'm not going to be able to read all of this. I'm not going to be able to read that, bro, because this is crazy. Are we shocked, though? Because the biggest thing that I want to talk about with this is the connection here between Diddy, the connection here to Epstein, and how it just seems that all of these people at the top just so happen to be accused, and it's always isolated incidents. So in other words, it had nothing to do with anybody else. This is not the norm. This is just this sick individual. We all know this is not the case. I wanted to drive this home to put into perspective for everybody just how laughably disrespectful it is from the Trump administration to gaslight us at an all-time level like this, to tell us that we shouldn't even care about this. We have much bigger things to worry about. No, because the implications here is that our government is ran by PDF files, which a lot of us already believe that to begin with. But what I don't want us to do is to become so desensitized to try to make this the norm that you have people like Adam from the PBD podcast saying that if the ultimate goal, if the ultimate consequence of us exposing who it is in our government who could all be participating and a part of this alleged ring that takes place in Hollywood and with the elites, if the ultimate consequence means that our country or our government crumbles or fails, it's not worth it.
On pedophilia and blackmailing the most powerful
What do you mean we are built? Define that. Do you mean our entire country? Our entire government? Our entire FBI, CIA?
I'm saying this. Whoever,
or this is one little operation that
Adam,
they don't want to expose.
Whoever he was working for, Epstein, Mossad, CIA, everything. Apparently, the most powerful people on the world were flying to an island and having sex with underage kids because she said it. There's tens of thousands of hours of them doing it. If we're built on that and the most powerful people that are running the show are in charge, the guys telling Cash Patel, the thing that you just read, shut up. Shut up about it. Hold on, you know who I am. He knows who I am. I want accountability for everybody. If it's Trump, if it's Bill Gates, if it's Bill Clinton, I don't care. If it's the president of anything. Expose them, because Adam, the truth has to come out.
Okay, so I only have one question for you, my dear friend. I agree with you, but at what price?
They could be broke.
But hold on, hear me out.
What price?
At what price?
At any price, Adam.
So you're saying to expose whatever happened on Epstein Island, you're willing to do whatever this looks like.
Yes.
Tear down the government, expose all the secrets.
Don't be like that guy, bro. Don't be like that guy. Don't be like that guy. That's just how bad this situation is. And I called it. I said because either Trump is in it, which I've been saying for a while, like you're only a blind Trump supporter when you can justify things like, sure, Donald Trump has more pictures alongside Jeffrey Epstein than any other person of that stature in politics or not. Jeffrey Epstein himself said that him and Donald Trump were best friends for 10 years. Not saying that Donald Trump is on tapes or any of that. But at the very least, you got to give some blame to Trump. But instead, they don't do that. Now, imagine if it was Joe Biden in all these pictures with Jeffrey Epstein. They had a falling out. Jeffrey Epstein says that him and Biden were best friends. Do you think that anybody, especially on the right, will give him the same benefit? Of course not. Of course not. I saw this coming a long time ago. The left, the right are two wings of the same bird. I keep saying that, bro. Been saying this since my, earlier mid-20s. I'm 31 now. I'm still saying the same thing. I've seen nothing to prove otherwise. Here go Trump in office, going back and not following through with his promises, just like all these other politicians in the past. It doesn't matter if they're on the right or the left. They're all complicit and they all run together. Those are my thoughts. Y'all up in the comment section, let me know what you think though. I'm Demetrius. I go by Didi. That's all for this one. Peace.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.